Welcome back to another Wordy Wednesday. Well, today we're going to take a look at 15 words that are very commonly used by all of us. Well, pretty commonly used, let's put it this way. And if they're not very commonly used, once you grab these words, start sprinkling them into your vocabulary, because they are good words, even though they are very frequently mispronounced. So we'll get right into it when we get back. Okay, I'm going to do something a little different this time out. I'm going to show you the word before I tell you how it's pronounced, to give you a chance to try your own hand at it. So let's get right into it. Here is our first word. This is a little berry. It comes from Brazil, so the name of the berry is Portuguese. Now, I'm going to show you the Portuguese spelling, because the spelling I first showed you is sort of the American spelling. That's the way you see it on bottles of juice or whatever. And of course, the second spelling is the spelling you would see in a Romance language. The pronunciation is Acai. The reason that Romance spelling should be a dead giveaway is because of that little tiny upside down C under our C. It's called a cedilla. It's cedilla in Spanish, cedille in French. It's a little mark that tells you that the C has an S sound, even though it's followed by a letter like an A, an O, a U, that wouldn't ordinarily produce that S sound. Ordinarily, when a C is followed by A-O-U, it has that hard K sound. And the cedilla tells you to soften it to an S. And I'm going to tell you this, even though I know you're going to think I'm like a crazy flake. When I was 13, I had a period for 3 or 4 months when I decided I didn't want to spell my name with an S. Because, as Jane Austen says, and I believe this was from Northanger Abbey, after all, what young lady of common gentility of 16 doesn't try to change her name, in as far as she can? Now, I was a little young for it, but anyway, I was spelling my name. I'll show you how. Because I wanted to do something different, and so that's it. That's Sue. I found the E to be superfluous, so I let it go. And I think that lasted maybe 3 months. But yes. And that is actually Sue if you follow the linguistics of it. What can I say? But it didn't last. So let's try our next one. And this one is not coming in from a foreign language. This one is an English word, and it's actually a rather old English word. So the word is blaggard, and it comes from, as you see, blackguard. The origin has to do with the kitchen staff in large estates, because a blaggard is a disreputable person, a dishonorable fellow. And I guess there was some sense that, the lower kitchen staff were ungenteel or perhaps disreputable. But blaggard is a great word. You can call someone a blaggard, and it's just so elegant. And fortunately, these days, they won't even know what you're saying. And I always like insults where people just have to go look them up. You're doing well if you force someone you've insulted to get a dictionary before they actually get offended. All right, well, you can come over if you'd like. All right, next on our list, and this is a pair, so I'm putting both of them up together. What do you think? All right, yes, okay. Well, what we have here is clabbered and cupboard. Although it looks like clapboard, and I've actually heard many people make that mispronunciation, clapboard. No, clabbered. And as you know, that is the horizontal siding on your house, and cupboard is from cup and board, just as it appears, because there was a time when a board was a table, or actually a table was a board, and it was the board on which you put your cups. Nowadays it has drawers or doors or whatever, and the word board still survives in that early context in terms of sideboard or bed and board, meaning the table, meaning food. And so that's how we get that one. Clabbered, interestingly enough, doesn't come from the same source at all. That comes to us from Dutch, which I should probably call Netherlandish, I would guess, because people from the Netherlands of my generation and my parents' generation do not care to be called Dutch because of what happened to them at the hands of the Germans in the Second World War, and Dutch, of course, coming from Deutsch German. So they were really testy about that, and not without reason. So instead of Dutch, we'll just shift over and say that has a Netherlandish origin. And in fact, many of our common words do. So clabbered and cupboard are not linguistically related, but because they are similar, I thought I would put them up together, especially because the similarity in spelling and the similarity in pronunciation. All right, let's take a look at this one. This is a really, really common word. We see it all the time. But are you pronouncing it correctly? No, it is not environment. I hear that frequently. People are forcing the pronunciation to match the spelling. It's environment. I, and then vas, earn. Environment. That root in there, iron. That's what you need to keep in mind to keep that pronunciation straight. Iron like the type of metal, or iron like you're pressing your sheets, which I'm going to do just as soon as I finish this video. Yeah, I have a very exciting life, don't I? But that's one that the word is thrown around all the time. It's not environment. No. And I don't care how many newscasters say it that way. Environment. So, just like iron, which is iron and not iron, unless it's irony, which is totally different. All right, this one is frequently used, and when it comes to pronunciation, I'm just going to give you this huge hint going in. It comes to us directly from the Greek. If you've ever studied Greek, then you know what it's pronounced like. So, epitome. It's not epitome, and it's not, it's that tome, even though that is an English word. It's epitome. Now, epitome is this delightful little word because it means sort of the perfect essence or perfect example of something. It comes from the Greek from meaning cut out, taken out. And literally it was like a section that would have been cut out of a papyrus or a scroll. But when the Greeks would do that, they would take out a section that that they considered to be the essence of what was written, like an abstract or an extract from the writing that contained a real sense of what that scroll was about. So that's how it came to epitomize the sort of perfect essence of something. If you know that that is Greek, you know that every syllable has to be pronounced epitome. And there you go. It becomes easy if you just remember that. Next up, all right, very common word. How do you pronounce it? Well, we pronounce it just like it's spelled. And that's going to be one of the few words on our list today that is spelled exactly as it sounds. Foyer. People will get all Frenchy and say, oh, it's foyer. Well, it might be foyer in Paris, but it is foyer in the United States. Just means a little entry area, a hallway. You really can call your hall a foyer if you want to get real grand and fancy. But usually it's just sort of an area, a receiving area in a home, or even a business may have a foyer. That little entryway where the doorman might sit, or you might catch the elevators or whatever. So that's sort of our rare example today, a word that is actually pronounced just like it's spelled. All right, this next one comes to us directly from Latin. This is a Latin word, and all we have done to it is slightly anglicize the pronunciation. People screw this up all the time, and it's frustrating, for me anyway, because I find even professional readers, the people who read for talking books or recordings for the blind, and ooh, does this grate on my nerves. It's imprimatur. Now, I have to be careful because when I say it, I'm inclined to throw an extra R in there and say it as if it is imprimatur. It's not. It's imprimatur. It's a soft A, like AH, imprimatur. Now, why do I tend to throw an R in there? Because my mother's family is from northern Massachusetts. And people from northern Massachusetts take R's out and throw them in. If you ask them how to pronounce M-O-D-E-R-N, they're going to say Morden. No, it's modern. No, it's Morden. It's what they do. And this survives to this day in Little Women. Louisa May Alcott lived in northwestern Massachusetts. And if you'll recall, the young March girls called their mother Marmie, right? It's M-A-R-M-I-E. That's how she wrote it in the book. It's called I dialect. I dialect is when you match the spelling as you write it out to the way people pronounce it. They were not calling their mother Marmie like some sort of nickname. That is simply how people in that part of the country say mommy, M-O-M-M-Y. For them, Marmie. And Louisa May Alcott just sort of memorialized that for us in writing that weird northwestern Massachusetts accent. So why do I have that picked up on that one word? Because imprimatur, see, I'm still doing it. Imprimatur is a word used in the Catholic Church. What it means is let it be written. That's what it means in Latin. So when it was official Catholic doctrine, they would stamp it, imprimatur, and that meant it had the backing of the church. And my mother's northwestern Massachusetts family was Catholic. So that's how I made the association when I was very young, and it's still so hard for me to avoid throwing that extra little R in there. It's not there. If you heard me say it, and I probably did in fact say it, ignore it. Imprimatur just means let it be written. It has official sanction. You don't have to use that when speaking about the church exclusively. You could say that, the Food and Drug Administration mark on medication has the imprimatur of the United States government because it's escaped the original confines of the clerical meaning and can now be used for anything. Yeah, that's a dicey one for me because I still sort of fall back to my mother's family and those wayward R's. But Louisa May Alcott did, so what can I say? I come by it honestly. Let's look at our next one. This one, for any of you who do electrical projects or plumbing at home, you know this word. And no, it's not solder. Solder, just as if it were S-O-D-D-E-R. And solder is when you heat a metal that heats up at a low temperature in order to fuse two other metals together. Solder. You would solder when you connect the lead caning for stained glass. You solder to join your pipes. You solder to connect little wires when you're doing electrical projects, some electrical projects. Especially if you're using things like circuit boards. Again, soldering. So that's the meaning of solder. That L is completely silent, and in fact, it seems to have the effect of like a double D. So, solder. This next one, I'll throw this out to you as a little hint. Just imagine Granny Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies and her roadkill possum stew. That should tell you how to pronounce this word. That's right, victuals is on the table. That is what the word victuals is spelled like. It's a common word. It's a useful word, too, because it means all kinds of foodstuffs. If you were provisioning an army, you were victualling it. It's a great word. So, if you are not currently using victuals, no, it's not some hillbilly word that Granny Clampett made up one day because she didn't know any better. Legitimate English word. Again, a very old English word. And sometimes these words that are old and have been in use for a long time, the spelling remained the same, but the pronunciation got corrupted over time, like blaggard, like victuals. Here, this is another old English word, and this one is very commonly mispronounced. Yes, the Queen has 4 grandsons, by the way. 2 of them are princes. One of them is untitled, he's just a regular old mister. And the 4th one is a viscount. And a viscount falls somewhere between a count and a baron. Count being higher, baron being lower, viscount. Sort of like a vice count in the middle between the two. Very commonly mispronounced. The Viscount's missus is a viscountess, and it's It's a word we don't use in the United States, but the fact is that here in the U.S. we seem to be very obsessed with British royalty. So as a consequence, we need to know how to pronounce this, because otherwise we do sound like the foolish hillbilly country cousins when we start reading articles about the Queen's grandchildren. So just remember, the S is silent. That's all. It's Viscount. All right. This is a fairly interesting one. So, and again, English, so let's take a look. What do you think? No, it is not a waistcoat. Let me throw in an alternate spelling for this. Yes, waistcoat. That alternate spelling is exactly how it is pronounced. But a waistcoat, which is sort of a vest, I don't think it's exactly a vest. I think fashion experts would probably be able to explain a few slight differences. But for my purposes, I am going to say it's a vest. A waistcoat. Very, very interesting word. All right, now we have 3 words here that I've saved for last. I'm throwing them all together because these words are all pronounced without a syllable. In other words, you look at the word, we drop a syllable when we pronounce them correctly. So let's take a look at these. Comfortable. By the way, I'm throwing up a dictionary pronunciation. This is one I got from a dictionary. This is how they say you're supposed to pronounce comfortable. Yeah, do you believe that? I thought, my goodness, this is out there. We pronounce it comfortable. We throw sort of half an R in there. Again, word that's been in English usage for a long time, and we have just sort of, boy, what we've done to the pronunciation of this word. No wonder foreigners have difficulty with this. Comfortable. All right, the next one, of course, is interesting. And whenever I look at the pronunciation of interesting, I am reminded of, remember the Saturday Night Fever? A remarkably underrated movie with a musical score largely by the Bee Gees, a remarkably underrated musical group. And Stephanie Magano is walking down the street. Now, you'll remember Stephanie. She was the girl from Brooklyn, I guess it was Brooklyn, who was trying very, very hard to improve herself. She was taking night courses. She was just working like a fool to step up outside of her Brooklyn roots. And at one point in the movie, they're walking down the street and she says, interesting. That's so interesting. Wait, interesting. And she keeps correcting herself until she gets it right. Interesting is an inappropriate pronunciation. It is a pronunciation that, as our poor little Stephanie Magano noticed in the movie, makes her seem lower class. And so she is struggling to seem higher class. Interesting. And then our last one. Come on. Everybody knows this word. It's vegetable. We do not pronounce that middle syllable. Vegetable. Same thing with comfortable. Not how we pronounce it. Interesting. No. Vegetable. No. We drop syllables. And in fact, interestingly enough, these 3 words, and the reason I threw them together is conforming to the spelling on these words tells people that we were poorly educated. And that's interesting, because ordinarily you would think that matching your pronunciation to the spelling, that sort of conformity, would suggest that you are better educated. No, no, it doesn't. Not in the case of these words. And we have little Stephanie Magado. I am going to grab that film clip, even if they demonetize my video for it, and show you, because it's actually quite charming, and it illustrates my point far better than I could. So let me grab that clip, and I'm going to throw it in right here so you can see what I mean.
Oh, yeah? Well, as a matter of fact, guess who I had lunch with today? Paul Anka.
Mouth. Had to open my big mouth, right?
It was very interesting, very interesting, very interesting, very, very intelligent fella.
All right. There is little Stephanie self-censoring. Now, I'm not going to argue with the concept of self-censoring. Language changes all the time. Words change. One of the conformation to spelling things that happens now that drives me particularly crazy, this is my own little crazy-making thing, is often. Proper pronunciation for my life has been often, but it's starting to change, and you're seeing often in dictionaries. But the only way you're going to hear it come out of my mouth is if I'm telling you what not to say. The word is often. At one time, however, it was often. And this is going back about 400 years. The proper pronunciation was often. But we gradually dropped the T, and the proper pronunciation became often, and now we're going back. So why does this drive me crazy? Because we've discussed this before. Bubba, truck. Those inkhorn scholars who tried so hard to make English conform to Latin would do this, and they would throw in letters. For example, debt. The English word debt never had a B in it until the inkhorn scholars got their hands on it. And then they threw a B in because they wanted to link it to Latin. We didn't get it from Latin. We got it from French. And we spelled it, well, mind you, there was no standardized spelling. But when we adopted the word, we spelled it D-E-T, or D-E-T-T, or D-E-T-T-E. So we know this because we have documents from the period. We know there was no B in there. We never had a B, but we got a B. Why? Because our inkhorn scholars gave it to us. They wanted us to keep the Latin root in mind. And as you know, I do not believe that English ever should have been cut to match Latin, ever. I do not think Latin is some great perfect language, and English is, you know, the country bumpkin language from the sticks that ought to be working to conform to the mother tongue, because in fact English is a Germanic language. Yes, we are all part of the Indo-European family, but English is a Germanic language. Latin is a Romance language. So, sure, overall, we have some commonality and some sympathy between the two, but ours is our own language, and it really does have many different sources. So that's why those things are an annoyance to me. But will I see often become the official standard pronunciation in my lifetime? Yeah, probably. Will I like it? Heavens, no. Will I say often? Not going to happen. All right. Everybody go take a look at the Nussnacker House We have their website is in the contest rules. That's what I'm looking for. Contest rules directly below the video. Go check them out. From what I understand, they have a Facebook page as well. Nussnacker House. Check them out. Sign in for the giveaway. Remember, what they want is your favorite vacation spot. So, let's take a little breather. Let's have our moment of serenity. Let's enjoy JLS's beautiful pictures. And by the way, if any of you want to throw in your own photographs for this, please, you're always welcome. Just what I'm looking for is some calm, peaceful images, or baby pictures, cat pictures. I do love cat pictures. Anything that is going to lighten the mood, make people a little easier, lower the blood pressure, because the world is a little dicey for us these days, and we need our moments of calm, serenity, or maybe just giggling at cat pictures. Oh, so before we do this, let me throw in Billy the cat. Remember Amy, Amazing Amy's accoutrements? Let's take a look at her winner picker, who is currently pulling the name of the winner of her giveaway out of a hat. I just got such a kick out of Billy, because you notice he's got that little clipped ear, as does my Audie, which means that Billy was a street cat too at one time. So, good for you, Amy, taking in a street cat. And Billy is a fine-looking boy. So, quick picture of Amy's winner picture, and then we're going to go immediately into our moment of quiet and peace. I will not see you tomorrow. I will see you, however, on Friday. Have a great couple of days.